Good morning. It is the highest honor to be here today. The only higher honor in my life is being a father and being an old fart, a grandfather. But it is just wonderful to be here with you, with my people, you crazy, passionate, risk-taking, entrepreneurial people all over the world. And I only wish that you wanted to hear from me as much as I want to talk to you, because what I want to talk to you about is how brutally hard, how difficult, how challenging it is to build a great company. And if you are going to do this crazy entrepreneurial thing, why don't you want to do something really great? Personally, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth when I was 22 years old, I quit a wonderful job that paid hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. My father wanted me to see a psychiatrist. My mother cried, but they were very happy some years later when I sold it for a nice big pile of money. Over 30 years, 7 startups, 2 great startups, 2 not so great startups, and 3 more what I lovingly call my DTT investments. I'll tell you about those in just a second. I went on to invest early stage in 27 more, 7 IPOs, 6 more DTTs, and everything you can imagine in between. DTT, these are the startups where you learn the most. DTT is my personal acronym for direct to the toilet, where you spend 6 months, a year of your life, in my case, without ever taking investor money, invest a few $100,000 or more in these businesses, and at the end, you have this pile of crap, you put it in the toilet, you pull the plunger, and that is when you really think about how to build a startup. When you are having the party to celebrate the IPO, all you do is remind yourself how brilliant, how strategic, how innovative you were. And the most important message I want to bring to you is to work on building a startup that's great, that's enduring, that isn't just fun and exciting for a year or two, but that lasts and lasts. And that's why math really matters. According to the Kaufman Foundation, 650,000 businesses are started each year in the United States alone. That's taxi cab companies, pizza companies, Google, Facebook, whatever. And the thing to think about is how many of those do we remember 3 or 4 or 5 years later? The best estimate I've seen came from a really brilliant VC, Mark Suster, and he says that number is 12 out of 650,000. Think about that. That's a 50,000 to 1 odds against any one of you doing something really great. Other estimates are far more generous, 2% maybe, or 0.2%. Think of how many times you've heard about friends of yours starting some smartphone app to manage recipes, to manage the food in your, kitchen. I got so tired of hearing about these that I went to Google and I said, hey Google, how many of these exist on the App Store? Last July 2013, that number was 850. Does the world really need another recipe management app? And does anybody possibly have a prayer of building a great recipe management app? And the other bad news, every 6 months, there are 75 more of them on iTunes alone, okay? So think about that. To me, the only person who has a prayer is the guy or lady who comes, or startup team that comes up with an app where at the end you push *69# and a little French chef jumps out of your iPhone, starts slicing and dicing and sautéing, and cooks a gourmet meal for you. And to do something that great, or to do something great in your field, you are making a brutal investment. You are investing, in my view of the world, even here in Greece, where the office hours aren't quite the same as they are in Silicon Valley, where they're, pardon me, about 20 of the 24 hours each day, perhaps. 20,000 hour investment, 5 years, 80 hours a week at a minimum. Few holidays, no vacations, very few weekends. It gets so bad when you climb into bed and the man or woman on the other side of the bed says, "Oh, so nice to see you again. What brings you home?" The dog barks at you when you come to your house. And that is what it takes to build a truly great startup. And sadly, in all this wonderful excitement at what is clearly the greatest day of the year for entrepreneurs all over the world, we have to remember that end of the day, most startups fail. Why? Not because you can't build whatever it is you're building, not because you're not smart and hardworking, but because you can't find the customers. And if you don't have a startup that matters, that makes a difference, that stands out in that crowd of 50 competitors or 10 or 850 apps, you have almost no chance of having a success. Right? Up until the year 2002, step one in building a startup was to spend a few months locked in a closet writing a business plan filled with fairy tales. This is going to happen. This is going to be the revenue in the second quarter of 2016. How could you possibly know that? You make it all up to get somebody to give you a check. And at the back of every one of those business plans is a bunch of spreadsheets. And on the fifth spreadsheet, in the 13th column, the number up top is in the low hundreds of millions, and the number at the bottom is 20 or 30 million. Why? How could they possibly all have the same spreadsheet, every one of those startups? Because that's what a Series A venture investor needs to see in order to write the check. But it's all fairy tales. Why waste 3 months writing fairy tales? And this, to me, is a key to the gift to entrepreneurs developed over the last 15 years by my co-author, Steve Blank, an 8-time serial entrepreneur with the same sort of mix of failures and huge successes that many of us enjoy, who said there is a better way to build startups, and he spent 2 years locked in his magnificent house on the Pacific Ocean, figuring it all out, testing it with early stage companies, and teaching it and refining it for 15 years, totally for the good of every one of you all over the world. Customer development, right? A method for getting feedback on making your company great from the only people whose opinions matter. Your mother will definitely buy one of anything you make, unless you're in the enterprise software business and she has no idea what to do with it. Your best friends will buy one most of the time. But that's not the key to a successful, repeatable, scalable, profitable business, right? So let's talk very briefly about the key sort of elements of customer development, because it takes a few hours, which actually begin tonight in a workshop at 5 p.m. to go into it in depth. First, a startup isn't just like a big company, only smaller, because on day one of a startup, it has no customers, it has no competitors, it doesn't know what it's selling, where it's selling it, how it's selling it. Number two, why bother with the business plan? A customer doesn't read it anyway. And if they did and it said every other month, you're going to buy one of these and you're going to give one away at Christmas and so forth, they don't have to do it anyway. Number three, and probably most important, companies can execute. They know their competition. They know their past results. They know their product and the features and the things customers like and don't like. We don't know any of that. And so, as Steve said back in 2002 when he published his very first book on the subject. Startups aren't really companies at all. Startups, by definition, are a temporary organization staffed by passionate, crazy people who go on a search for a repeatable, scalable, sustainable, profitable business model. And the goal of a startup is to put itself out of business by turning itself into a sustainable operating company. This is damn hard work, and anybody who thinks it isn't should go work at a startup for a year. Even if it's a successful one, it is brutally, brutally hard. And you need to begin by committing to yourself and getting your team to commit that you are up to the challenge, right? You search every element of your business to figure it out long before you launch the product. And there is only one place to search. Unfortunately, it's not on Google, it's not in your office. It is probably the 5 most important words in the Startup Owner's Manual. Get out of the building, look your customers in the eye, see what gets them excited, see what puts them to sleep, and use that feedback to drive it into your product, into your service. And instead of spending 2 or 3 months writing and formatting and polishing a business plan, start in a day or 2 with a business model. Business model developed by Swiss PhD Alex Osterwalder. 9 boxes on a single sheet of paper define every element of what your business might be. Who's my customer? Why are they buying from me? Where do I sell it to them? How do I get them? What do I charge them? And so much more, right? So let's just talk very quickly about 3 of these boxes. Value proposition. What's the product, the features, the benefits? How do I know that it stands out from competition? Or how do I think it stands out from competition? Because you will never know until you talk to your customers. Customer segments, not all the left-handed golfers in the Western world. Talk to me first about who are the 50 or 100 people who are going to be most excited about what you're doing. Because if you can't get those most excited people interested in your product, how will you ever interest the other hundreds of thousands or millions? You need to build a successful business. Who are they? Why would they buy from you? And then what I lovingly call the death box on the canvas. Kills more startups than any 3 boxes on the page. Customer relationships. How am I going to get my customers? Once I get them, what am I going to do to keep them? Product improvements, interactions, loyalty, much more. And if I can keep them, how do I grow them? Both by selling them more, selling them things more often, and more important, by getting them to become my viral marketing agents, because they are not just satisfied with my product, they're thrilled with it, and they want to tell their friends about it. But when you finish this business model canvas, what you really have is all your best guesses about what make this business a business. And that's where you start to study those guesses with your customers. And it's where the canvas steps back and customer development takes over. The first step in customer development, customer discovery, is the one that entrepreneurs hate the most, because you don't get to sell. You don't get to go out and make 20 sales calls, come home, tell your boyfriend, girlfriend, mother, father, I made 20 calls today, I got 1 order and 3 enthusiastic, responses. You don't sell at all. You do peer-to-peer conversations with people to understand what they like and don't like about elements of your business model. The first step has lovingly come to be called, around the world, the Bob Dorf give a crap test, right? If you don't understand in some countries the meaning of the word crap, it's what comes out of the back of your dog, your cow, or your human being. Does anybody care about your idea? Do they have the problem you're going in business to solve? Do they have it once a day or once a year? Are they worried they're going to lose money or time or their spouse or their house? Because if they don't worry about any of those things, you have just figured out that you have no market for whatever it is that you're selling. If you're not on their top 10, or better yet, their top 5 worry list, you're probably not going to get enough business to make a sustainable, repeatable business out of it. Are you filling a huge need? And are you talking to the right customers? Sometimes it's only left-handed bowlers who find this product incredible. And if there are millions of them, you're in business. If there are 40 of them, go home. Go back to the beginning. Do it again. Think about, how do you change the product to make it more valuable to more people? How do you change the customer target to find people who are more excited? Entrepreneurs hate this because you're not selling, you're not doing, you're learning. But this is the first foundational step in building a great company. Step 2, get into your own customer's shoes. Become your own customer. Look for your product or service the way your customers do. Online, in stores, talking to people, reading, doing whatever to understand what your competitive universe looks like, and as important, what might it look like 6 months or a year from now. My recommendation is that you spend an entire day in your pajamas, in your favorite chair, with a pot of your favorite beverage next to you, Googling it 100 different ways, and not looking at the first 10 search results, looking at the first 10 or 20 pages, so you understand what your customers will see when they go looking for something like your product. See where you fit in that universe and make sure that you stand out like a sore thumb as something they need to consider. Then and only then do you start talking to customers about the product, long before the product is built, with your minimum viable product, the quickest manifestation you can muster of what your product is and does. Not a PowerPoint about it. You can make it out of styrofoam or balsa wood or duct tape. Give customers something to put their hands on, to react to, and get feedback from that. 3 very quick rules about this. The first is the most important. It's come to be known as the ugly baby rule. You can go to Christmas or Kwanzaa dinner, or Hanukkah dinner for that matter, with the ugliest baby in the history of the world in your arms, and everyone will find something great to say about it. Oh, those 4 ears, they match and they all wiggle at the same time. Isn't that adorable? What a cute beard on a 3-month-old. You're an entrepreneur. You're passionate about what you're doing. When you show a friend, a roommate, a family member, a colleague, your idea, they know you want positive feedback. So you get totally mixed signals about whether this is a good idea or a good product or a real problem or not. Use your friends and family to introduce you to people you don't know, who have no obligation to say nice things about your ugly baby or compliment your beautiful baby. And you have to do this yourself. As a committed founder, you need to look those customers in the eye, hear their oddball ideas like, well, this product is kind of interesting, but if it could add and subtract and save the result, everybody in our company would need to have a copy on their desktop. You, the founder, are the only one empowered to react to that kind of feedback and use it to drive improvement in your product or service long before you launch it. And last but not least, this is not selling. This is peer-to-peer conversation, equal sharing of ideas back and forth. And when it doesn't work, when one of the business model elements, it might not be the product might be great, you're selling it the wrong way, charging too little or too much, selling it in the wrong place, you pivot, you make a dramatic change in at least one of those business model boxes. And when it doesn't work, which is usually most of the time, 2 or 3 or 4 cycles till you do something great, then you do it again and again. This is how you make your startup great. And if you are a dedicated, passionate entrepreneur, ready to spend 5 years of your life, spend the first few months of your startup working on creating, conceiving, constructing something that can be truly great. You'll be proud of it, you'll be successful, and you will work your butt off. Thank you. Get out of the building.